What's going on, everyone? Hope everyone is having a great Wednesday. I'm meteorologist Jonathan Kagis. Welcome to a special edition of Tropics Watch Live. And for anybody that may be tuning in from the great state of Florida, stick around towards the end of this live stream. We're going to talk about a severe weather threat that has crept up again. We were talking about this yesterday, but coming into fruition again today. There's a marginal risk for severe weather. I'll show you the future radar, and then I'll talk about how the tropics are going to impact our weather for this weekend as well. Specifically, we do have a tropical wave that is going to be talked about a lot because it could go into developing into that little yellow blob, if you will, that you see toward the north central and western Gulf of Mexico. That was the one we highlighted on Monday's edition of Tropics Watch Live. If you're just finding us for the first time, we're coming at you live on clickorlando.com, the Pinpoint Weather app, and on the Click Orlando News 6 YouTube channel. So everybody, welcome. If you're watching on YouTube, post in the comments where you're tuning in from. Also, if you have any questions, hit me up. Post those in the comments as well, and I will get back to you either on this live stream or after, depending upon when you submit your question. So let me get that off the screen right now, and then we're going to get all into this. So we were talking about this on Monday's edition. Again, we run Tropics Watch Live every Monday at 11 o'clock through hurricane season, and then as needed. This is one of those as needed days. Just because we have a little bit of bark out there, we're going to investigate if it's bite warranted, if you will. All right, so the two waves that we've been talking about, 50% shot for development on this first one here, and then we have a 40% shot for development on the trailing wave, big juicy wave coming off of Africa. Then we have this thing here, 20% shot for once we get a tropical wave to enter the Gulf of Mexico, it's going to have the chance to develop. Now that wave, I called it sneaky the other day because it's kind of hidden. It's right about here, Northern Caribbean, extreme southwest Atlantic, but there's a lot of dry air surrounding it right now. So you really can't see it. But it is going to travel through the Bahamas, likely getting into Florida. Most likely just a tropical wave by the time it gets to Florida, but this is going to increase our rain chances through the state, and that actually would be a great thing, pending it doesn't get too strong, of course, because at least my lawn is crunchy. I don't know about yours. If you're watching on YouTube, post in the comments. It's been a very, very hot 10, 11-day stretch in Florida, hotter than normal. So that'd be nice to help to take away some of the heat. But then we're going to have to watch it really closely once we get it into the central and western Gulf. And that is because the wind shear out there is basically non-existent, and the water temperatures are record hot in spots. Now, there may not be a lot of time for this thing to consolidate and to get organized, and that's what we are banking on. But anytime you get a storm in the western Gulf, especially with the help of the curved Texas coastline, it helps to give it a little bit of curl, if you will, to help it go counterclockwise and to help kind of zap it up a little bit. Models also do not do well on the intensity of these weak systems entering the Gulf of Mexico. So we're going to get into that one, and then I'm going to get into more of the Florida-based stuff closer to the end of this live stream. So grab your popcorn, grab whatever you want to hang out with, and we're going to venture through the entirety of the tropics. And then we're going to break down the Florida part of this forecast as well. And again, welcome to all the viewers on clickorlando.com, the Pinpoint Weather app, free downloads, by the way, and the YouTube channel. Post in the comments where you're watching from. All right, so wave number one doesn't look too healthy, although there is a little bit of a curl right there. That's hanging out right here. There's a lot of dry, dusty air right about here. I'll show you the Saharan air layer, but this is very dry up here. There's my Y. This is wave number two. This is the big, juicy wave southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. This one's likely going to go somewhere out in here, but there's also a lot of dry, dusty air. So while that one looks a little ominous in terms of, wow, there's a lot of thunderstorms around there, it's still going to have some trouble, and it's still going to take its time to get developed because, number one, it's in this monsoon trough, as we call it. So both of these systems actually need to detach themselves from it before they can start to take advantage of the environment, which still, it's a little better than where it's been, but it's still not great. And again, that is a good thing, okay? So I want to be clear about that. There's also this little batch of thunderstorms near Trinidad and Tobago and the Windward Islands. There are some model guidance that want to try to develop a little something as it gets kind of south of Jamaica. We're going to watch that as well at this point of the season as we are in the peak of hurricane season. That's what we watch for. We watch these waves like they're under a microscope, okay? So want to be clear about that. I want to show you a closer look here at the beefy tropical wave. Look at this thing. Look at the thunderstorms blossom here. We even have some kind of low-level spin here. So this one may be close already to becoming a tropical depression. Again, this one has the 40% shot. We'll be interested to see if the 2 o'clock update from the National Hurricane Center increases those chances. Certainly it has good model support, which I will show you in a second. I'm going to break down some computer models on all 3 of these systems, and I want to show you the ensembles as well, where the different initial conditions are put in, then we get that wide range of solutions on these storms. So hang tight with me for a second. There's that system around the Cabo Verde Islands. Okay, so we're going to watch that closely as well. Now on to the model. The kind of the best and easiest way to pick up what is going on is if you look at the vorticity. This is the spin in the low levels of our atmosphere a couple thousand feet above the surface, and we can see what's going on. So right now, basically what we're looking for, we use the Eastern Pacific as an example, something like that. A red ball, if you will. That means we're strengthening that low-level spin, and that it is starting to become consolidated. It's strengthening, and we do have the circulation. I have the wind barbs on here so that we can see if there's a counterclockwise flow in the model. Now, this shows this to a T, what I was just talking about, the monsoon trough. There is a very wide, a very elongated area of spin. You can kind of see that counterclockwise flow. In order for that thing to start strengthening or to start organizing, it's going to have to consolidate itself and break free from that bigger realm, if you will, of winds that are in here. There is wave number 2 right there. It's a little more consolidated. Nonetheless, it's going to have to do the same thing. But watch what happens. It eventually does that. Now, there are a couple things. One of that thing that's around Trinidad and Tobago right now, that's it right there. So it's a weak little thing, but still that could be heading towards Central America, so that will be something that we watch. A piece of that little elongated wave also breaks free and then heads towards Trinidad and Tobago. The main part here is going to be this, and then there's that secondary wave off of Africa that we just showed you on the satellite. So by August 19th, what day is August 19th? Let me bring up my calendar. So by Saturday, maybe by the end of the weekend, we could conceivably have 2 named systems develop in the Atlantic. The GFS is arguing for that. And I do want to say, too, the GFS has been the far more conservative model so far. So the fact that the GFS is kind of forecasting development here over the next few days, it gives you a little more confidence that it's going to happen, although there's still some work that those storms would need to do, and I will show you more of that environment coming up in just a couple of minutes. What I want to point out here for Florida is at this time, we're going to look at the wave, and this is why I like to have the wind barbs over here, because we can pick out the tropical waves, and basically it's like a N or upside, it's an N or an upside down U. Notice how the wind comes in like this, it kinks up and then down. This is our tropical wave as of August 19th. So we're going to likely have a nice juicy tropical air mass rolling over Florida. It's going to increase rainfall at least by the first part of the weekend, maybe even into Sunday as well. But it's really once it gets out into the central and western Gulf of Mexico, that's what we're really going to have to watch. I'm going to bring the screen full here so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. And again, if you have any questions and if you're watching on our YouTube channel, post them in the comments and I will do my best to get to them. If you're finding this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up as well. By the time we get to August 21st, right on through here, we still have a tropical wave. But it is organizing. So this is why we have to watch this closely. This is on the GFS. And then it organizes further as we get towards the 22nd early in the morning. And then as it works later in the 22nd and then into the 23rd. Anytime anything gets into the Gulf of Mexico, we need to watch that like a hawk. The modeling right now does not get this entity very, very strong. I caution, though. I've been calling this a sneaky storm because right now the wave is pretty much non-existent on satellite. The dry air is kind of eating up all of the thunderstorms. But the environment in the Gulf of Mexico is near perfect. The wind shear really backs off over the next couple of days in the north and central Gulf of Mexico. So that's not good. And we also have record warm water temperatures in the Gulf of Mexico as well. That is certainly not good. Modeling also doesn't do the best with a weak system entering the Gulf of Mexico with near prime conditions. So it's going to be interesting to see if we start to see model trends increase the intensity of this. We obviously do not want that, but I do want to caution, it's happened before that a low-end tropical system's expected in Texas, and then it turns into something a little bit more. So it's just something to be mindful of, and again, we should all be prepared anyway because this is the peak of hurricane season, so again, just be mindful of that. I'll show you the European rendition in just a second, but to kind of take that further out with those extra waves. Here is the European model. I'll show you the ensemble forecast in just a minute. And it's the same kind of thing here. This elongated wave in the monsoon trough off of Africa. And then eventually they try to consolidate. Now, there's some weird things going on in the Euro. It really does not develop that leading wave. And this one kind of pulls it back in to make one kind of juicy wave rolling across the central and eastern Atlantic before it kind of goes up in this direction. The other thing, though, if you look closely towards Florida, we do have an even beefier wave by the time we get to August 20th. So it slows the wave down a little bit, and it makes it stronger getting into Florida. That does not mean that we are looking for a strong system. It's just it's a more robust wave. It'll increase our chances of rain, maybe a little gusty wind as it comes on through. Going to watch it closely, of course, as the water temperatures in the Southwest Atlantic are very, very hot as well. But what I'm trying to say is, at the very least, this tropical wave is going to increase rain chances for us somewhere in that 19th to 20th ballpark. So as we, again, get into the weekend. But watch what happens here. The Euro kind of rolls this right across the North Gulf Coast, so it keeps it weak because there's land interaction all the way, and then there's really not a lot of time. So there's still a bunch of different solutions here that we're going to look out for. One of those solutions here, and this is really why I want to show you the ensemble forecast, because most of these ensemble members kind of keep it over water. Now, again, I want to make it clear for those that may be tuning in on YouTube from Texas or may frequent clickorlando.com. None of these ensemble members get this thing crazy strong. So be careful what you see on social media, because there are going to be those runs, and I've seen them already blowing up a storm. Is it in the realm of possibilities? It could be. I just got done saying that a lot of times modeling does not do a good job with weak systems entering perfect conditions for development. Okay, so I want to be clear about that is going to be possible, but just know your source. There's a lot of garbage on social media. My gosh, I just saw TikTok yesterday. If you're getting your weather information from TikTok and it's not a meteorologist, just don't follow them, please. Do me a favor. You'll hear me rant about that a lot, but it's garbage. Garbage. All right. Area low pressure there. So all those L's, so that means there's that many storms coming through the Gulf. It means they're the different members' idea of what could happen with this system. So again, there's a lot of member support here, so this increases our confidence anyway that we're going to get some kind of development or quasi-developing storm here over the next few days. So we also have some of those members taking it towards Louisiana, just like the parent, the operational European showed. European develops both of these systems here in the Atlantic. There's the African wave. They're both African waves, the one that's closer to Africa. Here is the other one that kind of takes it towards the Caribbean as well. I think in all likelihood, both of these miss the Caribbean. We're keeping a close eye on that too, in case both of them do not turn. GFS, similar story. Again, a lot of L's here, meaning there's a lot of model guidance, a lot of model support, at least ensemble support, I should say, that these storms develop over the next couple of days. So just keep that in mind. Again, it's always good to pay attention at this time of the year when things go through. Kevin asked a great question here. He's asking, are the hurricane hunters flying out right now? The answer to that is no. There's nothing to check out just yet, and those two waves out in the central Atlantic are way too far away for the hurricane hunter aircraft to get to. They have to get a little closer to land so they can fuel and make their rounds through. So it's going to have to wait till they get a little bit closer to land, and they may not even inspect those further too, because at least at this time anyway, it does not look like land is going to be threatened. Now, if that tropical wave that's in the Atlantic does start to do a little something in the Gulf, then they're going to start to they'll investigate that, likely both out of Lakeland, where the NOAA hurricane hunters are based, and then out of Biloxi, where the Air Force hurricane hunters hang out. I want to show you a closer look to Florida, and this is kind of what I'm talking about, and then I'm going to get into the afternoon storm. So if you came here for storm updates, I promise I'm going to get to that. There's a lot to kind of unpack here and digest over the next few days. So there we go. That is August 19th. And here is our tropical wave right in here. Kind of oriented just like that. That is the wave axis. Again, we're not looking at a developing storm. So again, just be careful what you see and who you follow out there. It does increase our rain chances though. So again, the weekend forecast, keep it here to News 6. Chief Meteorologist Tom Sorrells, Candace Campos, Americo Kinos, Michelle Morgan, and then obviously Troy Bridges in the morning. We're going to keep you posted on this because the weekend forecast is going to really depend on what this wave becomes. And there could be one of those days becoming a washout. Typically, we don't have that in the summer. We get those with those coastal systems. But there's certainly a lot to watch and a lot to iron out. And then, of course, the European kind of skirts the North Gulf Coast of the North Gulf Coast. And that does not allow it to kind of develop very, very well. So keep that in mind. All right, I promised the Saharan air layer, and then I'm going to get into the more Florida-centric stuff to talk about the storms. And then if anybody wants to go back to break down the tropics, if you're just tuning in on clickorlando.com or on our YouTube channel, please post that in the comments below on the YouTube stream. Carla is watching from North Carolina. Thank you, Carla, for tuning in to the live broadcast here this morning, almost afternoon. Here is the Saharan dust. Now, the Saharan dust is not the end-all, be-all here. But we like when it's there for tropical purposes anyway, because when they do start to ingest that dry air layer into the storm, it does help things. It does help things out a little bit. Tropical systems don't like dry air in the middle of the atmosphere. That's where the Saharan dust likes to hang out. So the point I'm trying to make here is that we do have some obstacles, thankfully, again, for those storms to go through. What's up, my friend, Cajun guy? No, I'm going to get to you right now just in case you don't want to sit through some of the Florida-centric storm stuff that's coming up. But they do, especially if over a long period of time they can sit there and churn. Even though they're weak, they still kind of disrupt the ocean a little bit. So that would be a very good thing. There's a lot of different studies, or I shouldn't say studies, there's a lot of stuff in the textbooks anyway that show, like, when you watch a tropical storm, you can see it on satellite, because that's how we measure the sea surface temperature. We have the satellites up there, and you can see there's going to be this, where the center was, or where the highest wave heights were, there's a little batch of cooler air, and it's really cool to see the trailing storm that goes over that does weaken. And that's one of the things, if you follow News 6, or if you follow clickorlando.com a lot, I was able to go out to Lakeland, Florida, and talk with NOAA and a lot of the hurricane hunters that are there, and a lot of the other scientists that are trying to get their models into these storms, almost like in Twister. But that is one of the jobs of these underwater subs. Guess that's contradictory, but of these underwater craft here, to measure the sea surface temperature, and then to measure the temperature below the surface, so that those can go into the models, so that they can better understand the interaction between the sea and the air. and we can kind of forecast, hopefully anyway, in the future, a little bit better when it comes to that intensity, because it can pick up on those little small scale features, the small scale cooling that has taken place in the Atlantic. So great question there. But even if it's a tropical storm, it will help to kind of disrupt and bring up some of that cooler air. So thanks, my friend, for that question and for tuning in again. All right, on to the Florida stuff. So if you're watching from Florida on YouTube, and of course on clickorlando.com and on the Pinpoint Weather app, welcome again. We're going to break down some of the timelines here. If you want to talk tropics some more, if you're just tuning in, post in the comments for me on YouTube. Give it a thumbs up if you found this helpful as well. And we can kind of go back and go over some things as well. So it's really, really good stuff. Yeah, there's some really, really cool stuff. Let me see here before we get into that, if I can bring up that story. Click Orlando, NOAA, hurricane hunters, as I'm talking to myself. Let's see here. Stand by. All right, so I just found the story, and if anybody's interested, it's a really cool story. You can head out there, so I will I'll pin that to the top. And that's that story of how they're doing the underwater craft, the sail drones that sail into the storm. They have drones that fly around the eye wall. And then, of course, the actual hurricane hunters, they have new drop zones. It's crazy. There's a huge effort to understand these things better. Noah's doing a fantastic job. Really, really cool stuff. Hey, what's going on in Tampa? We're just about to talk about Florida. You see this big kind of paintbrush of green here, really from Panama City to Tallahassee to Jacksonville through all of Central Florida, down into Fort Lauderdale. This is that marginal risk. Again, we're not looking at widespread severe weather by any means. It's level 1 out of 5. It means, though, that a few storms could get a little rowdy later on Wednesday evening and Wednesday afternoon as we get those storms going. I'll show you why in a second if you're interested in that. I don't have that graphic loaded up, but I will throw it back in. Here's kind of the timeline, though. That's 4 o'clock, and there could be some rocking storms going already. We're looking especially for where those where they turn purple or white towards the back end of this scale. Really red, purple, and white. That means that storm is a little more intense. And then watch what happens. There's 5 o'clock. We have the sea breezes coming together, and you see rocking storms from about Deltona, Orange City, Sanford, Orlando, Kissimmee, and then down maybe southeast of Lakeland as well. And then we have more storms coming in as the West Coast sea breeze gets going and then kind of pushes in and fizzles out. I know there's been a lot of people that have still missed out on storms. We're going to try to increase that storm chance for you over the next few days, specifically for the weekend, if we can get that tropical wave to come through. And again, that would be an amazing thing. I'm not rooting for a tropical system. I want to be clear about that. But a tropical wave would be great to kind of take away some of this heat and to help everybody's lawns out that may have just been burned out from our extended 10, 11-day heat wave there. But there's Thursday in the morning, 9 o'clock. We could have an early start to these storms. And Thursday might feel really nice. I think we're going to wake up with clouds and some rain around. There's 2 o'clock as storms continue. And then you see more storms come through. So Thursday is going to be an active day. Let me show you why that is and why we're finally getting rid of that heat as I kind of just talk again. And thank you guys so much for being with me and with clickorlando.com and sticking with News 6 for your news and weather. We appreciate that. We know you have many options. Sound like a flight attendant when you fly. We know you have many options to get your information. All right. So here's the deal. Big dip in the jet stream. See it right here, all that dry air in orange, right on through there. That is going to come down. That's separating our big upper high that's been hanging out. That's now pushed towards the Pacific Northwest. They are getting a ton of heat. And then we had that high, that Bermuda high back here. So kind of parting of the Red Sea here, and that is allowing us to get back to a more typical Florida heat. This is the jet stream, though, right down towards the Gulf of Mexico. So tomorrow to the Panhandle, we're going to be dry. but that's also going to help to direct more storms in. We're going to get that active kind of wavy pattern back through, and that is going to increase the storm chances and even earlier start time with those storms. So it's going to be your atypical, again, pattern for Central Florida over the next couple of days, courtesy of that jet stream. So there you go. That is why we are talking about that. Welcome to everybody who may be finding this late. I'm going to go as long as my voice will allow. To everybody on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. Jim has a question, Persico tropical prediction for the next 3 months. That is a great question. I was surprised when the number was increased. Let me say that. I was, just because, let me zoom out on the satellite. Typically, we're in the El Nino, of course. We really have not seen the wind shear increase yet. And that normally happens during the back half of the season, at least where we kind of stand. The atmosphere really hasn't realized from a wind shear perspective that we've transitioned to an El Nino just yet. The one thing is, though, the Pacific has gone nuts. We had Hurricane Dora just crossed 3 basins as a hurricane, breaking some records, becoming only the second hurricane to cross 3 basins, the Eastern Pacific, Central Pacific, and then it became a typhoon. The reason why I'm talking about that is there's other storms out here. We're going to have another one. I believe the 8 storm in the Eastern Pacific is right here. And you see that other little swirl here. The satellite, I don't have it on the Pacific side, but what I'm trying to say is when the Eastern Pacific is super active, typically it's quieter anyway in the Atlantic, because all the rising motion to force up those thunderstorms are in the Pacific. That's one thing we see. There may be a short window, and then I hope it shuts down quick, but I think the reason why they increase their forecast so aggressively is because since the water temperature is so warm, we might be able to continue those low-grade storms really through the end of fall and, God forbid, into the winter as well, just because it's going to take so long to cool the water temperatures from where they've been. So, good question. I think it's hard to say, but I do think we're in the midst here of a little bit of that uptick, and we'll likely see that continue. It is my hope then, and maybe this is some wish casting, that the wind shear catches up and then blows everything off. All right. Models were headed towards Texas. Did they hold? I'm in Corpus Christi. Hey, well, thank you for the subscription for one. And if you guys are finding this helpful on YouTube, please give it a thumbs up. Again, it does help us out a lot. I love the interaction here, the question and answer. So please come with the questions. If you have thoughts, would love to hear them as well. Again, post them in the comments. Give it a thumbs up. Let me show you one of the models here. This is the GFS, and they have held and maybe even gotten a little bit more, I don't want to say aggressive. Not a lot of these go nuts just yet, thankfully. But the Hurricane Center, if you did not see this morning, has highlighted that area with a 20% shot for tropical development. I'll go back to the model because I did that squirrel thing. I wanted to show you that first. But here kind of is the wave. That's August 21st. And then it continues in. Now, a lot of things don't get it too terribly strong. I want to caution you, we were talking about this a lot, though, earlier in this live stream, that you may be familiar with a lot of those hurricanes that came into Texas that were forecast to be low-end tropical storms, if that. And then kind of the last minute intensifying. I'm not saying that is going to happen, but models do struggle with a prime environment in a weak tropical wave. And the Gulf, unfortunately, is record hot in spots. And the wind shear is really going to back off. Let me show you the wind shear model. I forgot to add that to the playlist, but I want to show you here. I want to get you into early next week. So there we go. Anywhere you see blue is detrimental. It's bad for the storm. That's what we like. We love to see the blue. Anywhere, though, you see no color at all, that is where we have some wind shear. So this is going to be next week, and we're looking towards next Monday-ish, Tuesday-ish. And we have a wide area where the storm could track. Let me get my big head out of the way. We have a large area where the storm could track where there is limited shear. So we have the water temperature that's going nuts, and we have limited wind shear. So while right now there's not many things pointing to the storm going gangbusters, which is great, but just keep it in the back of your mind that it's within the realm of possibilities. There may not be enough time this time around for that to happen, but I just want to let you know that's what happens with some of these models. So just keep on hanging tight and paying attention. But if you're just joining us on YouTube or on clickorlando.com or on the Pinpoint Weather app, this is it. I mean, it certainly looks like the peak of hurricane season. We are in that peak. The actual peak day is September 10th. So we are getting there. Again, there's still some things working against both of those storms that are highlighted in orange. But there's going to be the potential here for, again, models anyway suggest it. Let me show you that again. There you go. The GFS by the 19th or 20th, by the end of the weekend, wants two more named storms right on through here. There's one, and then there's two, and then the potential for that thing to get going in the Gulf. Again, hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully that is not the case. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions, post them in the comments. I will get to them. I will look back here on the taped version once this goes through on YouTube, and if I missed anything, I will answer them for you. Again, this has been another edition of Tropics Watch Live. We get together every Monday at 11 o'clock. I know today is Wednesday. Don't worry. We're not going back. This is a special edition because we had that extra wave pop up. We were talking about it, and the chances were increasing. And I just wanted to get on here to talk with you guys about that little update there from the Hurricane Center. That there's a lot going on. The bark is still a little worse than its bite, but we are still going to be watching closely. Then the main deal is this weak little sneaky wave that could end up developing in the Gulf of Mexico over the next few days, which the Hurricane Center now has highlighted. Again, we talked about that one on Monday, but nonetheless, if you want to stay updated on all things Florida weather, hit subscribe. All things tropics as well, hit subscribe. And again, we'll catch you every Monday at 11 o'clock and then and as needed as well. Thank you guys a ton for hanging out and listening and participating, come with your questions and concerns and comments and all that stuff. And again, any more questions that you may have, post those in the comments for me, and I will get back to you. And again, at the very least, I'll see you guys on Monday, and if necessary, I'll see you more throughout the week. Thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. We'll catch you soon. With this one, I got to record something else, though.
Killing me.
We're even.
Hey, what's going on?
What? Oh.
I'm
with
actually
this-
like asking you a question of what's going on.
we could get two storms over the next few days, like out in the central Atlantic, and then that one in the central Gulf could end up being something for Texas, Louisiana, like a sneaky shot.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Would that be something good to include with Take 6 today? Is it something different besides heat?
Actually, the heat story is kind of over. This is the first day we're out of advisories.
Mm-hmm.
So the heat story is pretty much over. The main story for us is the chance for severe weather. Whatever.